welcome to Food Literacy for All. Welcome to Food Literacy for All. So great to see so many of you here tonight. Quick announcement before we get started. Since people might still keep coming in for a few minutes, if you're in a row that has some open middle seats, if you can scooch in, that'll be appreciated by folks who come in late. We have the largest enrollment ever this year of students. So I want to do a warm welcome first to students. We have undergraduates, we have graduates, we have students from all across the university, a huge range of disciplines. I also want to do a warm welcome to community members. So unlike most classes, you might be sitting next to a farmer or a chef or an activist or a grandparent or someone who is here who's just really interested in food systems. So it's a very different class in a lot of ways. So a few things about this class and some of the things that make it unique. One is that we're going to be hearing not just one of the core tenets of this class is that we're not just hearing from folks in the university, not just academics. We're going to be hearing from activists and practitioners and scholars and people really working from all across the food system. And so we're really interested in learning from all of these different forms of knowledge and valuing these diverse voices. A couple other themes of the class is that we are working to increase diversity and equity, particularly in the food system space. And we're all about strengthening university and community partnerships. So unlike most courses, this course, Food Literacy for All, is led by a large team of folks. So actually, I'm going to invite everybody to come up here, to everyone who's not still looking for parking, everyone to come up here to just kind of quickly introduce yourself, and you'll hear more from everyone in a minute, but I'll just say who everybody is and say your enrollment, like what's your involvement with the course.
I'm Ann Hebron. I'm from Detroit. Shout out for Detroit. Thank you. What up, dog? I am representing the community partnership part of this, and so I'm happy to be here. This is my second semester, so I hope you have a good time.
Hi everyone, I'm Cindy Liang. I am the faculty co-lead for this class, and my affiliation is with the School of Public Health and as well as Nutritional Sciences. So I've had the privilege of working with this amazing team all last semester, and we have an amazing panel of speakers lined up, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with you.
Hello, I'm Winona Bynum. I'm the Executive Director of the Detroit Food Policy Council. We are a community organization that has been partnering with this program since the beginning, so 4 years. We will be helping to coordinate some of the programming going on in Detroit, getting Detroiters here, and I'll talk more later, so I'll end it there.
And my name is Erica Blair. I am a second-year master's student in the School for Environment and Sustainability. And I'm also the program coordinator for SFSI. So basically, I'm here to sort of help this class run smoothly, doing a lot of behind-the-scenes work with updating the website and speaker logistics, and also communicating with you all on social media and in our weekly newsletters.
Hi, I am Ayana. I am one of the GSIs for this course. I'm a master's student over at the School for Environment and Sustainability. And if you do not have an iClicker, just come see me after. We'll get your attendance. Also, if you're a community member and you're wanting access to some of the readings on the syllabus, also come see me after, and we will get that all
And where are you seated?
I am over there.
Over there.
Hi, my name is Kim. I'm also a GSI for this class. I'm a second-year master's student in the School of Public Health and Nutrition. So you'll be seeing emails from the both of us, and if you guys have any questions about the course or logistical things or just want some extra help, feel free to email the both of us. We'll both have office hours as well.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. And Devita Davison will be here soon. She's the one who's circling around looking for parking. You'll hear from her later today. Great, thank you all. So my name is Lilly Fink Shapiro. I am the director for this class. I've been involved with Food Literacy for All for the beginning. If you've been here before, you know that this is like my passion. I love this class so much. I run a group on campus. I manage a group called the University of Michigan Sustainable Food Systems Initiative. And broadly, we are a group of, we're about 70 affiliated faculty and staff all across disciplines in many different departments. This is a group of faculty and staff who research and teach about food systems. So if you are someone, whether you're a student or a community member, interested in studying food systems, you want to know what kind of research is going on at the university, you can go to the SFSI website. We have a list of all of our affiliates. A couple other things about us, so we're really an interdisciplinary group. Raise your hand, is there any students here who are in the undergraduate minor in food and the environment? Nice, welcome. So we've been really instrumental in helping to create the existence of a minor in food and the environment here, and we also have a relatively new program that's a graduate certificate in sustainable food systems. Anyone here, any grad students in their certificate? Nice, at least one, a kind of hand, great. We also, every semester we gather all of the different food systems courses across campus, and we share those out with students as a resource. So again, food literacy for all is a very different class. We are free, we're open to the public. We just ask if you are anyone who's not enrolled in the course, we call you a community attendee. If that applies to you, please make sure you're just going on our website. It's a really quick and simple RSVP form. It's really important for us to know who we are reaching to help ensure that this class can continue. So thanks in advance, and also to make sure we have enough seats. Thanks in advance for RSVPing. The other thing is that this class, if you're into Twitter, you can we'll be live tweeting the class, #FoodLiteracyForAll. That's our handle up there. iClickers are required for the class. So all of the students who are actually enrolled in the class, you'll need your own iClicker because it's tied to your participation grade. For community members, we have a bunch of iClickers that every class you can borrow. So if you didn't get them yet, we'll come around. You can raise your hand. And if you want to participate in today's polls, just to get warmed up. And actually, everybody, if you're a student, just get out your iClicker because we're going to use them in a minute. Also, you can see at the back of the room, we have a video camera. It's Michigan Media back there. So thank you to Michigan Media. Every class is professionally filmed. We have really high quality recordings for each class. They're going to be free and available. They'll be posted on our website and on YouTube. They're available. We know that people across the world actually watch these sessions. So you're welcome to go back, whether you want to share it with a friend, or if you're writing an essay and want to check on something, you can also check on the classes. Okay, a couple other things about this class. This is a new pilot this year. If you have friends in Kalamazoo, we're actually going to be live streaming 4 of our classes to Kalamazoo. It's a partnership with Kalamazoo Valley Community College and their culinary and brewing program. So four different sessions throughout the semester. We might be getting some Q&A from folks who are gathered there, and they're going to be eating the food of the culinary students and drinking the beer of their brewing students over there. So we're excited to engage them as well. Okay, a couple quick things for students, and I'm just going to go over this quickly because this is all online. You can see check out the syllabus, it's on Canvas. The graded components, you have to be here, and your attendance is really measured by the iClickers. There's some discussion posts on Canvas, and there's some reflective essays, which you can read more about on Canvas. There's several extra credit opportunities throughout the semester, a little later in the semester, with our community partners in Detroit. So you'll hear more about that, or Jerry and Winona can share more. Okay, you must stay for the entire class session. So most sessions, it's not like before the Q&A, it's at the end. Class ends at 8. And also limited use of computers. So if you're shopping in class, you're going to get docked for attendance. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, so now you've got your clickers out, and we just want to get a sense, this is the beginning of the semester, we want to get a sense of the food literacy levels in the room. So get out your clickers, we're going to go through these pretty quick. So broadly, to start out, have you ever visited or worked on the U of M campus farm? And so this is just also my plug to tell you all that U of M has a campus farm, and it's fantastic. You should check it out. And actually now the farm is now selling to Michigan Dining. So I think you can hit it. All right. So most of you, all right, 51% of you have not been out there, 33% have been out there, 16% of you have worked on another farm. All right, let's keep going. Okay. I can explain the differences between the following concepts: a food desert, a food swamp, and food apartheid. True, false? I've heard the terms, but I don't know what they mean. I have no idea what the heck you're talking about with this question. We're just wondering at the beginning of the semester where are folks in the room? Okay, so we're kind of all over the place here, which is good. I think we're going to cover probably all these terms throughout the semester. Most of you have heard the terms but are not sure what they mean, and about 41 of you, 22%, is really fluent, can really explain what the difference is and what all these terms mean. Thanks. Oops, oh, I gave away the answer. Dang. This is my joke every year. Which crop survives best in Michigan winters? Now you all know the answer, so we'll skip this one. But there's just some punny ones. I always get people with the winter squash. Okay. Oh no! It's all going. It's got a mind of its own. All right. Which food has the lowest carbon footprint? All right, I'll give you the answer here. I'm looking for the red lentils answer. You can still click in if you want. If you're concerned about participation points, you can still click in. Okay. Okay, last chance. I'm not going to ruin this one. How many farms and gardens are there? What? Weird. Maybe don't hit the, I don't know. It's not advancing. How many farms and gardens are there in the city of Detroit? And we have a representative here from Keep Growing Detroit. Everybody knows. It's very impressive. The answer is 1,603, but probably more. Akela, is it more really? That's accurate. That's accurate. Okay. This is from a 2018 report. Okay, so we'll keep going here. I'm just going to hit this one time. Okay, I want to give you a quick preview of everyone who's going to be coming this semester. Again, we're going to have guest speakers every single Tuesday night from across the U.S., speaking on a whole range of topics. So next week, joining us is Jessica Holmes. Her talk is called Health Inequities, the Poor Person's Experience in America. She's coming in from North Carolina. She's a county commissioner policymaker there. The following week, we're excited to have Paku Heng, who just stepped down. She was part of the Hmong Farmers Association. She's based in Minnesota. She's going to be talking about racial justice and equity in the food system, going beyond the roots. The following week, we have a sugar expert, Robert Lustig, who's an endocrinologist at University of California, San Francisco. His talk is about corporate wealth or public health. Again, he's going to be talking about sugar, so if you're interested in those topics, he's a very fiery, passionate speaker about that topic. Some of you may have heard Zaire's podcast. It's called The Racist Sandwich. If you want, you can listen to his podcast before coming in. Actually, a couple of our speakers here, Devita Davison, who you'll hear from later, was on his podcast maybe a couple years ago. You should tune in while you're walking across campus. His talk, he's actually based at the University of Michigan now. His talk is called Decolonizing Food Journalism. Nicole Taylor is a chef. She's based in New York now. Her talk is called The Disruption of Traditional Food Media. You might have heard she has a cookbook called the Up South Cookbook, which has gotten a lot of press and attention. Then we're going to have a panel with a couple of folks really involved in the Detroit urban agriculture scene. So we're going to welcome Naeem Edwards and Ashley Atkinson to talk about the hidden plight of modern growers. And that'll be moderated by Jerry Ann Hebron. Then we're going to invite Leah Penman, who she's the author of a book called Farming While Black, and her talk is about uprooting racism, seeding sovereignty. She's also going to be a really fantastic speaker and is going to participate in a couple of other community events while she's here in Michigan. Then we have Maren McKenna. She's going to talk about meat, antibiotics, and the power of consumer pressure. She's the author of a book called Big Chicken. Then we have another panel all about the fake meats and analyzing them from lots of different angles. So more details to come on that one. Marlene Schwartz is the director of the Rudd Center based in Connecticut. Her talk is called Promoting Wellness Through the Charitable Food System. Then Terry Campbell, who works in Senator Stabenow's office, talking about the Farm Bill and national food policy. And then Jennifer Falby, who's going to be talking about soda and soda taxes, big soda versus public health, soda taxes and public policy. All right, a huge thank you to our sponsors. Every year we reach out to a lot of different folks to make this class possible. So thank you to our sponsors. And with that, I'm going to invite up Winona. You've got a mic. There. And then you can use the clicker on the keyboard.
Okay, thanks. All right, can everyone hear me? Okay? Okay, thanks. Okay, again, I'm Winona Bynum. I am with the Detroit Food Policy Council. And I'm trying to click. Nope. I turned it off. Okay, that'll work. Okay, so I'll be behind the keyboard. So I'm with the Detroit Food Policy Council. I'm the executive director. My name is Winona Bynum, and as you can probably see from the RDN, I'm also a dietitian. So, you know, this is January, and a lot of people are thinking about health improvement and doing something, you know, having New Year's resolutions, improving themselves, health, diet, those kind of things. But what supports that? What kind of environment supports that? You have to have the right environment to be successful in those things, and that's one of the things that we believe at the Detroit Food Policy Council. How many people have heard of a Food Policy Council? Okay, we're getting there. This is great, thank you. So when I started, I've been with the Detroit Food Policy Council for 5 years. When I started 5 years ago and I would ask that question, crickets. So I'm seeing like about 25% of the room knows what a food policy council is, and that's great. This is one of the great definitions, a pretty good definition of it. It's a group of people who get together and try to improve the system through various methods. One of the other things I've heard is like, it's the social infrastructure. So you have the physical infrastructure, but that's the social infrastructure to get things done. We're not alone. Food policy councils are a thing. They're around the country, about 339 of them as of 2018. We're loosely networked, so we are networked somewhat through the Johns Hopkins Food Policy Network. We have a listserv, and we talk to one another and share learnings. But in Michigan, we have about 25 food policy councils. That's growing as we speak. And we are more closely networked, and so we meet monthly. Via phone conference calls, and then we actually meet in person about 4 times a year. If you're interested in looking at food policy councils and seeing the network, there's a directory there, and we're all pretty much listed there with contacts. The Detroit Food Policy Council, one of the things that is different about us is that we're community-led. Most food policy councils come out of government action. So a health department or something like that, but we came out of community action. So the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network, which is also one of the partners that helps design this program, was instrumental in getting us started. They organized activists, wrote the food security policy that is at the city of Detroit, was adopted by the city of Detroit, which called for us. And we have been meeting since February, or since November actually of 2009, and we had our first employee in 2011. And the reason I'm telling you all this is because you might wonder why we're interested in being involved in a program like this, and that's because we are really worried about the environment, the food environment. So this is our structure really closely. And Jerry Ann was one of the founding Food Policy Council members. We just let her go. We let her go kicking and screaming. But this is how we get our work done and how we're organized. Our mission. So this really talks about why we are involved. We want to influence policy. And so that will make a food environment the way we want it to be. We want a hunger-free, healthy city of Detroit. We work with other food policy councils that have likewise missions. Our values are listed there, and that really speaks to why we're involved. This is our vision. I won't read that to you. We work on advocacy at the federal, state, and local level, community engagement. I'm just going really quickly. Here are some of our coalitions and committees. So we are involved in things around the city and around the state and around the country that have to do with food. And a lot of times what we're talking about, so what you'll find is, and you might have already seen this, is that people take food for granted because we all eat. People think, oh, I know about food, or they take it for granted. They think it's always going to be there. And so we are always making that connection of how food goes with transportation, how it impacts the environment, how it impacts health. That is part of the social determinants of health that you'll hear about. We're at places a lot of times where you wouldn't think about food being talked about, and we're there to talk about it. And some of our allies in no particular order. And as you can see, U of M Food Literacy for All is they're one of our allies. And so we're really excited to have this program connected with Detroit, and to bring programming both to Detroit and help to bring Detroiters to Ann Arbor to participate in this program, in this course. And actually this is us in the community, but I just put the pictures there because I had so many words. I thought, okay, you need some pictures. But this is what we're doing. And like I talked about, in places where you wouldn't normally think about us being, or talking about food advocacy, or talking about policy. We're at farmers markets, we're at hosting local events. And then you also get to see our other staff members, which you may see them during the course of this program. Lilly talked about upcoming extra credit opportunities. So Detroit Food 2020, and I think that's cut off. So the name is cut off of it, but our 10th annual Detroit Food Summit will be March 12th and 13th. So you'll have an opportunity to attend and volunteer. It usually draws 200 to 300 people. It's a 2-day event. And we're talking about everything food. So from policy, growing, nutrition, just any type of thing that has to do with food. That's what we'll be talking about there. The theme is visions of a food future. We could not help playing on the 2020 theme, so I had to get visions in there. Free rides. We'll be helping to coordinate the free rides from Detroit. So if you are interested, or if you know of someone in Detroit who wants to get to Ann Arbor and be here physically present, just contact Kabibi. She was in one of the pictures. I should have pointed her out. But anyway, Kabibi at DetroitFoodPC.org, and she'll get you connected with a ride, or get that person connected with a ride to Ann Arbor. And that's it for me. Thank you. Just hope really that you're able to take full advantage of this program. One of the things, I'm a dietitian, so you wouldn't think that I would be working in food policy work or food system work, but one of the things that helped steer my career was a course much like this of seminars. So I really urge you, as Lilly did, to talk to your fellow students, people who may be in different programming areas, talk to the community members, and get to know the speakers and their work, because that's really what brings the value to this program. Thanks.
Okay. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah? Okay, so my name is Cindy Liang. I'm an assistant professor in the School of Public Health and Nutritional Sciences. And I wanted to take this opportunity to just tell you a little bit more about my research and how I got into this area of food and nutrition disparities work. So the next few slides, I'm going to talk about food as a social determinant of health. Is this not working? Oh, it is working. Okay, so let me put this. These are some pictures from my own research. My research focuses on diet-related health disparities. So disparities in diet quality, so how healthful is our diet, and diet-related conditions like obesity, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, physical conditions that are related to diet, and disparities in these. Before I came to Michigan, I was at the University of California, San Francisco. And as part of my research, I interviewed a lot of families with children who struggled with food insecurity. And so these are pictures taken by my study participants. We asked participants to use their own camera phones, or their own cameras, to take pictures around things that affect their ability to feed their family the food they want them to eat. So it's a pretty broad theme, but the pictures that came back and the stories that accompanied the pictures were incredibly striking. So this picture on the top left here, this mother said that she felt caged by the high price of fruits and vegetables. She wanted her kids to eat healthy. She wanted to buy fruits and vegetables at the store. She said they were always too expensive, and the most affordable things she could buy were bananas and apples. So she took it from this angle to show that perspective. This picture down here, a mother took of her 13-year-old son, and the mother said, it looks like a picture of a boy eating a typical American meal. She said, "We rarely get the chance to eat out. And when we do, my son always orders a burger and fries. It doesn't look like much, but it gives us a sense of normalcy, that we're not that different from other families." The picture on the top right, this mother captioned it, "lunch." And the picture on the bottom right here, the mother said, "This is a picture of my super bare fridge. Every time my son opens the fridge and says there's nothing to eat is heartbreaking." So I started off on this work working at a large food bank. I graduated with my master's in public health from UC Berkeley, and I got a job as a nutrition education intern at the Alameda County Community Food Bank. So if you're familiar with the San Francisco Bay Area, Alameda County includes cities like Berkeley, Oakland, as far east as Livermore, and as far south as Fremont. And at the time, this food bank served about 40,000 people. It has since, if not doubled, it has tripled. But at the food bank, I would teach our food bank clients how to eat healthfully, how to read the nutrition facts label, and how to read the My Pyramid. I would teach them how to cook with the foods that we had in our food bank. So if we got a big pallet of eggs or fish or squash, we put together recipes for our clients. I coordinated our large number of member organizations, so soup kitchens, pantries, churches, schools, any place that distributed food from our warehouse. And I worked with anti-hunger advocates on the ground, so local, regional, state. I learned all about the anti-hunger issues that are happening around us and things that affect our food bank's ability to basically complete its mission. And then when I went back to school for my doctorate, I started to learn all about how nutrition affects health, right? So how does healthy eating prevent chronic disease like cardiovascular disease or diabetes? And it can prevent a large proportion of the diseases that are prevalent in today's society. But I kept thinking about back to my time at the food bank, and I thought, well, how does your ability to eat a healthful diet and prevent subsequent chronic disease, how is that affected if you're low income, like many of our food bank clients were? How is that affected if you live in a bad food environment where you have access to a lot of fast food but no grocery store? How is it affected if you're being targeted by ads to show you that the unhealthy food is cheaper than the healthy food? Or if you don't have adequate cooking facilities, or you don't know how to read a nutrition facts label, you never learned about nutrition when you were in school. And I started to think about, even though we know so much about how diet can prevent disease, which part of our population is being left out because they don't have the adequate resources to eat a healthy diet? So food, I think of as a very important social determinant of health. These are the social determinants of health as defined by CDC. So these are from the Healthy People 2020 goals. CDC calls the social determinants of health conditions in the places where you live, learn, work, and play, and how they affect health outcomes throughout the life course. And so we have economic stability, education, health and healthcare, neighborhood and built environment, social and community context. Food is actually not it's not one of the main categories. Food is fit under economic stability as one of many bullet points. But in addition to economic stability, because we know having financial resources influences your ability to purchase healthy food, education is related to food access and food justice. Health and healthcare are affected by food insecurity. Your neighborhood, your built environment, whether you have transportation, whether you can get to the grocery store, this affects your ability to eat a healthy diet. And the social and the community context is incredibly important in also accessing a healthy diet. So I think of food as actually cutting across all these categories. And I hope that as you sit through the course, you also learn about ways in which our work intersects in these different categories. So I've been kind of dropping the term food insecurity. Food insecurity, just defined by the USDA, so we're all on the same page, is the limited or uncertain availability of nutritionally adequate and safe foods, or the limited or uncertain ability to acquire acceptable foods in socially acceptable ways. It's a really long definition put out by the USDA, but it encompasses a lot, right? It has a notion that food security exists if you have access and available food in your neighborhood. Foods in your neighborhood should be nutritionally adequate and safe. So they should be foods that sustain our growth and development and are also free of toxicants. And then food should be acquired in socially acceptable ways. No one should have to resort to dumpster diving, to stealing, to panhandling, to have to get the food that you need for you or your family. The national prevalence of food insecurity is 11%. In Michigan, it's about 12.9%. So we are one of the states that's higher than the national average. But this is a chart from Feeding America, which is our largest network of food banks. And you can go on their website. It's called Map the Meal Gap. And you can look at what is the prevalence of food insecurity in your state, in your county, in your congressional district. And if you notice by these maps, basically across the US, there is no county or congressional district that is free of hunger. So all of our policymakers should be very concerned that there are people who experience food insecurity, especially children, pregnant women, older adults, vulnerable populations that are now experiencing food insecurity. These are some of the consequences of food insecurity that have been reported in the literature. So I'm a researcher. I follow all the studies that have come out about food insecurity and some health consequence. And these are just some of the consequences that have been reported. Just the smallest. Most all of these studies have been done in school-age children, adolescents, adults, and older adults. So they do cut across the lifespan. But you can look from this list and you can see there are behavioral consequences. So higher levels of smoking, poor diet, lower physical activity. There's a lot of mental health outcomes, a lot of behavioral outcomes. There's a lot of physical health outcomes, so things like diabetes, hyperlipidemia, hypertension, metabolic syndrome. And so it's not just limited to if you are experiencing food insecurity, you have a micronutrient deficiency. It goes way beyond that. More recently, you might have seen, these are headlines that have come out in the last 2 years. about food insecurity happening on college campuses. And so, as a food insecurity researcher, of course, I started paying attention. What is happening at the places where we work? There have been 2 large reports or studies that have come out now about this. So this is a systematic review. It's a compilation of a lot of published and unpublished studies on food insecurity on college campuses. This is from the Hope Lab, Wisconsin Hope Lab, and so it's a report of, I think, 60 different colleges, 4-year and 2-year colleges, and they've done surveys at all of those colleges, which includes U of M Dearborn, but not U of M here. And remember I told you that the prevalence of food insecurity in the US is 11%. This report found that the prevalence of food insecurity in college campuses was anywhere from 35 to 42%. So more than 3 times the national average. This report found basically the same thing. So college students, we know, are experiencing food insecurity at 3 times the rate of the general population. When I came to U of M, one of the first things I did was to conduct a survey on our campus. What's happening here? We were not included on the prior report. So what's happening at our campus? I did a survey of 800 students. It was a sample from the registrar, so I tried to be as representative as possible. And these are some of the indicators of how we measure food insecurity. So did you worry that your food was going to run out, your food didn't last and you couldn't buy more, you couldn't afford to eat a balanced meal? And the proportion of students from our survey was anywhere from 34% to 46% who responded to those indicators, to those questions. And then another 20 to 30% said they cut the sides or they skipped meals, they ate less than they thought they should, they were hungry but didn't eat because there wasn't enough money for food. Not because they didn't have enough time, not because they couldn't get to the grocery store, not because they're trying to lose weight, because there wasn't enough money for food. And then about 10% said that they lost weight because there wasn't enough money for food, and they didn't eat for a whole day because there wasn't enough money for food. If you put this all together, the prevalence of food insecurity at U of M in Ann Arbor is about 32%. So that's taking the low and the very low combined. Okay, so if you add these up, this is what we consider food insecurity. So 1 in 3 of our students, approximately, experience food insecurity. We are right in the range of those other studies and reports. We are not different, unfortunately. Why does this matter? Food insecurity among college students is a health issue. So this is self-reported BMI. Okay, we understand there are limitations with self-report, but across populations it's actually fairly accurate. So if you look at very low, just the most severe form of food insecurity, these students had, on average, one of the higher BMIs. And then if you look at low food insecurity, these 2 groups are higher than this high food secure, fully food secure, no problems with hunger or food insecurity whatsoever. So even though it doesn't look like much, because if you know what a BMI means, body mass index, you'll know that 23.9, 25 is still in that normal, healthy range. But the fact that this is happening on a college campus among young adults, and we already see these disparities, what's going to happen then 10, 20, 30 years from now when people graduate college if we already see differences in BMI? Food insecurity is an academic issue. This is taken from the registrar. So this is not self-reported GPA. This is students' cumulative GPA. And we see a very clear gradient between students who have the most severe food insecurity, this very low group, and students who are fully food secure, have no problems whatsoever. I think it's very important to understand student stories. So we did another photo project with our students in this study. We asked them to take pictures around their food insecurity experience. So a student sent us this picture. It looks like that's Main Street, right? You got the beautiful lights, lots of restaurants there. Well, the student said, my original plan was to walk around to take my mind off of food and then go to bed. I told my friends I had steps for dinner. When I was walking around and took my mind off of food, I didn't really realize I was hungry, but when I got back to the dorm, I was so starving, I got chips out of the vending machine and then went to bed. So this picture is telling how students are trying to distract themselves, trying to ignore the fact that they're hungry, and then giving into the temptation, eating whatever is available, and obviously it's not high quality if you're buying your dinner from a vending machine, and then feeling guilty about your choices afterwards, that you couldn't suppress your hunger. Here's another picture that a student sent. They made it blurry on purpose. But the student said, that's my Spanish class, and most of the time I haven't eaten. I had a hard time paying attention. It definitely is something that makes it harder for me to learn, which is the point of what I'm supposed to be doing. I just feel like it's one thing that kind of stands in the way that other people don't have to worry about. From my research, I have seen that food insecurity affects academic achievement. Partly it's because students are thinking about food and their hunger instead of thinking about their school. It's hard to study if you're hungry. It's hard to focus in class if you're hungry. And this is certainly explaining that point. So here's another picture that a student took. It looks like this is of their dorm room. The student said, this is reminiscent of those nights that you go to sleep and you're hungry. You lay there and it's empty, it's dark, and you're just there. If you're hungry, it's hard to sleep, but you're also thinking about where you're going to eat next, and almost the idea of not knowing and just looking out into the darkness. So in my classes, I like to draw on the social ecological model. How many of you have heard of this in your classes or know what it is? Good. So the social ecological model, for those of you who haven't heard about it, or for our community members, this is a theoretical framework that we use to think about how factors across the environment influence individual health. So at the center of all these circles is the individual, because the individual is influenced by the interpersonal level, the organizational level, the community, and the structural level. And if you try to think about food insecurity and how this fits in, obviously you need to know about food and how to shop on a budget and how to navigate your food environment, and you have to be able to access food that you like in order to be food secure. At the interpersonal level, you need to have your family to support you. You need to have friends that support you, people that you can talk to or can share recipes with. At the organizational level, here at University of Michigan, Dining is a huge source of food for our students. How they shape their policies, their dietary guidelines, their hours, shape how students get food here. At the community level, we have farmers markets, our food environment, whether or not students have access to transportation, that influences their food security level. And finally, we have policies around our federal food programs, around financial aid. All of these things affect students' financial resources as well as their food security. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the Maize and Blue Cupboard. How many of you were aware of this resource before you came here tonight? This is so nice to see. Maize and Blue Cupboard has only existed in its permanent location since April. And it is our permanent food pantry. It has taken 2 years to get to where it is now. But if you haven't been there, go check it out. Their hours are on this website here. It is a wonderful resource for anyone with a U of M card. So if you are a student, your faculty, your staff, if you have an M card, you can swipe in. And there are no prices for anything. There are suggested limits, but it's a resource for food on Central Campus for anyone who needs access to food. They not only provide food, including shelf-stable and frozen or refrigerated items, they also have cooking supplies, they have personal and household supplies, and soon they're going to offer support for things like SNAP, nutrition assistance, and so forth. And so actually, these are their hours currently for this semester. Just so you know, the impact of Maize and Blue Cupboard, since it's been open, they have had over 12,000 people come and visit. So over 12,000 visits from various U of M affiliates, more than 3,800 unique shoppers. So people are using this as a regular resource, and about 500 shoppers per week. They get hundreds of pounds of food from food gatherers, and they want to donate that to the people who need it. If you want to help, they definitely appreciate volunteers. There are opportunities for collaboration. This is a picture of the wonderful staff who work at Maize and Blue Cupboard. If you have the monetary resources and you want to donate, they certainly appreciate monetary donations because they can tap into all their networks of food vendors and get food at a much better price than if you were to go shop at Kroger or Meijer and bring a bag of food over. And so these are opportunities for you to basically help our U of M community, either by getting food yourself or by donating money so that other people can get food. Other ways that we address student food insecurity here at Michigan, we have a food recovery network, a student food co, emergency meals to the Dean of Students office, so they handle crisis management. Anyone who shows up at the Dean of Students office with an emergency for food can get swipes put on their M card. We have our campus farm and our farmers markets. And then any other ideas that you have, you should raise it with us, because the best ideas to address student food insecurity don't come from faculty, they don't come from staff, they come from students. And that's how the Maize and Blue Cupboard started, that's how the Student Food Co started and the Food Recovery Network. So continue to brainstorm and think about how can we better solve this important problem on our campus. This is a picture of the Maize and Blue Cupboard line before they moved into their permanent pantry. This is on Washtenaw, so you can see how the line goes and loops around, comes down the street, and actually goes down Washtenaw Avenue, because these are people lining up to get food. So I'm actually going to skip this, move on to our next speaker.
Good job. Alrighty, that was, wow. I think I love Maize and Blue. Have to figure out how to donate some food from the firm. Again, my name is Ann Hebron. I am the Executive Director of North End Christian Community Development Corporation, and we are the operators of the Oakland Avenue Urban Farm, which is located in the North End part of Detroit. I wanted to take just a little bit of time to talk more about who I am, how I got to the point in my life to do the work that I do. So I'm going to start with my family. I was born in Lebanon, Tennessee. I am the granddaughter of a sharecropper. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm the granddaughter of a sharecropper, and my grandfather, Samuel Cartwright, and my grandmother, Rachel Cartwright, had 10 children. My mother, one of those children. We all migrated to Detroit pretty much about the same time. I was 2 years old when the family left Tennessee and made that migration up I-75 to Detroit, and we landed in a neighborhood referred to as the Black Bottom. And I don't know if any of you have ever heard of the Black Bottom part of Detroit, but that's where many African American families ended up living in the city of Detroit because we really couldn't live anyplace else. And so we landed there. Most of the families worked for the automotive company. My dad came to Detroit to work at the Ford Motor Company. $5 a day is what they were promoting, and as well as my uncles and aunties. So this neighborhood, the Black Bottom, was called the Black Bottom because the soil was so rich. It's like compost. And so many of the families that migrated from the South brought their same customs to Detroit and grew food. And so I had the benefit of living in an environment where no matter whose house, what neighbor's house you visited or whatever, everybody had a garden. We grew our own food, and then the things that we did not grow, we were able to go to the Eastern market and buy, meat and eggs and stuff like that. So that's the environment that I lived in, and people shared food up and down the street. So if I had too much greens, I gave greens away and got tomatoes, and maybe someone had potatoes or whatever. So it was a very much great experience to be able to live in an environment where you didn't know you were poor. We were poor, but we didn't know we were poor. So Black Bottom was demised as a part of the urban renewal, and a lot of those families moved to other areas. My family ended up in the North End. And the North End is where I do my work. It's a community that is north of downtown Detroit, or Paradise Valley, which was a part of the Black Bottom. And again, this neighborhood was rich in terms of our culture, our African American culture. We still grew food, and it still felt like I was a part of a village, and felt very safe in this environment. And this all changed as white flight left Detroit, industries left Detroit, and jobs left Detroit, and people in our community and others followed their jobs to other communities, and the neighborhoods became decayed and vacant. And this happened, and then on top of that, the 1967 riots happened, and that created more decay for our neighborhoods. And so for a long time, these neighborhoods were socially and economically disinvested for development and resources. My family moved northwest, and so I spent the next half a century living in a richer neighborhood where we had grocery stores, we had good schools, and we had a pretty stable neighborhood. When I retired, I was asked to come back to the North End, where I do my work. And I was very much so disappointed and shocked to see that the neighborhood that I loved was no longer there. It was very unsafe. There was a lot of vacant land, and people were feeling like they were invisible, did not matter, no one cared about them. And so I had to figure out how to do my work in this community, and in order to do that, I had to talk with people, like, what's going on over here? Who are you? How long have you lived here? What does this community need? What do you need? And people always told me food, housing, and jobs. I heard that over and over, no matter who I talked with. And so because there was so much vacant land, it was easy to decide the first strategy for working in this community. We'll grow some food. But in order to grow some food, we needed to get people involved. We needed to invite people in. Let's meet, let's come together, let's talk about what this community needs, what kind of food you want to grow, what do you want this garden to look like, do you have time to work in it? And so that was in 2008, and then in 2009 we broke ground. It was amazing when we broke ground in 2009. We had a 20 by 20 plot. We grew amazing food that first year, but what I noticed is that there was still some bad feelings around farming. People kind of felt like we were sharecropping, and they didn't like that. And so we had to kind of figure out how we change the narrative and create a space where people can feel more welcome and want to be a part of this initiative. And so what are ways that we can do that? And so we looked at, you know, what's the culture of this neighborhood? We are in a music neighborhood. We're part of Motown. Motown was birthed in our neighborhood. So how do we lift that up? And how do we work with artists in our community to create spaces that are familiar to people and make them want to be in these spaces and come in to grow food, to engage with each other. And so we started talking with Eastern Market Corporation to figure out if maybe we can open a farmer's market. And we just didn't want to open a farmer's market. We wanted that farmer's market to be more about social engagement. So social engagement, but also providing access to healthy food. And how do you do that? So Eastern Market supported us in terms of giving us money for programming, helping us with vendors, providing us resources to build out some education around SNAP benefits and double up food bucks, and things started to change. The conversation started to change over time, and people became more connected to the farm and to the food systems work that we were doing, so that it wasn't feeling like it was connected to sharecropping or that stigma that people don't feel that comfortable with. So as time went on, we got invited to not only work and grow food in our community, we were asked to go into a corporate environment. And that corporate environment at that time was Daimler Chrysler. It's now Fiat Chrysler now, but we were invited to come into Daimler Chrysler plants and set up farm market stands. And it was really strange when we were asked to do this initially, but once we got inside the plants, I saw the need as to why that request came to us. Those families, those people working in the plants were food insecure. They were food insecure because they did not have access to a cafeteria. They only have 30 minutes for lunch. And within that 30 minutes, they had to eat, go to the bathroom, take a break, whatever the case may be. And so what you saw throughout the plant were vending machines. And the vending machines had typical stuff, candy, potato chips, donuts, things like that. And we were invited to come in and bring food from the farm that we grew, but we also brought in what we call grab and go items, where people can get grapes and apples and bananas and things like that, little salads. And we worked side by side with what is called a Stay Well Health Coordinator, which is a nutrition person who deals with health issues and try to encourage people to watch their weight, change their diet, and to learn how to prepare meals more healthy. And so we worked side by side with them, and they would weigh people, check their cholesterol, and give health tips. And we also were able to give health tips. And what we found out is that people were starting to feel better in the plant. The blood pressures were starting to come down. And I don't have the statistics of all of that because it was confidential information that they could not share with us, but we got the testimonies. So people's blood pressures were coming down, their cholesterols were low, they were losing weight, they were feeling better. And here we are, 7 years later, we are still working inside these plants to provide healthy fruits and vegetables. And what's the impact? There's about 17,000 people between these 6 plants. Do we see them all? No, but we see a large percentage of them. So between that and the work that we do in our communities, the North End, we work in the North End, but we service the Tri-County area, and the reason I know this is because people come to shop at our farm, and they're from Macomb County, they're from Oakland County, they're from Wayne County, they're from Downriver, they're from, Detroit, downtown Detroit, or different parts of Detroit, because they want to come and, one, be supportive of our work, but they also know that we're growing food, we're using organic methods for growing foods, and that we have, or we are making a huge social impact within our neighborhood. We give a lot of festivals and community events to allow people to come together and share their differences around food. I don't know if you know it or not, but food is a barrier for racial differences, cultural differences, gender differences. When you're breaking food, it's a way to open up and learn more about people and each other. And so we are known for providing a space where everybody feels welcome. Our children are, and you saw some shots of the young people who are working at our farm during the summer. We've had thousands come over the last 11 years to spend summers with us, and they are learning soft employment skills, but they're also learning about food, the different food systems work, and how to be engaged within their communities. And so that when they go further on to school, we have one that is at MSU right now, who is looking at, she wants to be a doctor, but she also wants to be a nutritionist. So that came from her growing up in the food environment at our farm. In terms of extra credits, we are going to be offering, again, the internship for the summer. And there are 2 farms where there's an opportunity for students. One is at the Oakland Avenue Urban Farm, and the other one is at D-Town Farms, both in Detroit. And we've been able to, last year we shared the 2 interns, and it worked out really well. The amazing thing about that relationship is that those students are still connected to us in different ways. They're coming back to volunteer. They're asking us for additional information. They're sharing information with us. So that's been a really, really tremendous experience. And I want to say the opportunity to be able to co-lead and co-plan this class has been amazing for us from a community perspective, because we get to talk about the grassroots work that we do underground, and it then adds value, I think, to the experience that you will share or that you will learn over the course of this lecture series. So again, I'm happy to be here. And if you want to ask me any questions offline, I'll be around for the entire semester, so look forward to talking with you. You make this? No. Okay.
It really was. Thank you. I told y'all I'm old. Use this at my own risk. Okay, let's try this. You were right. Which way is advance? Am I pointing at something? Okay, we got it. So let me introduce myself. My name is Devita Davison, and I am the executive director of a nonprofit organization in Detroit called Food Lab Detroit. And I want to thank all of my colleagues for their amazing presentations this afternoon. This evening, I've learned so much sitting in the audience. And of course, thank you to the University of Michigan and the Literacy for All of the staff involved for inviting Food Lab and myself to become a partner in this series. I'm watching the clock, Lily. You told me I got into 8 o'clock. So I'm watching the clock, and I'm going to speed through these slides really quickly. And so, you know, we talked about the social determinants of health a little bit, right? Mama Jerry then talked to us about what she does at Oakland Avenue Farm, how she goes out to these manufacturing plants, and how she sets up what we call farm stands or pop-ups so that our manufacturing workers can have access to fresh, healthy food within the window of 30 minutes that they have for lunch. I'm going to take y'all to another segment. We talked about students and how students are food insecure as well. I'm going to take y'all to another working segment. And that's actually the workers in the fast food, in the retail food, and the restaurant industry. So here's the thing. And these are for my really smart students in the audience, and for my community members too. All year, or even for the last couple of years, we have been seeing headlines. We have been hearing about how the economy is booming, how we have been adding jobs to our economy. This is particularly students who are going to be looking and seeking jobs after graduation. I hope that's what y'all in school for. Y'all do hope to work, right? After you all graduate. I mean, I think that's why y'all in school. Unless you're going to be like somebody in my family, my brother, I'm not going to name no names, who was, thought he was a lifetime student up here. But anyway, so I would hope that the goal after graduation is to get a job. And so I hope that you all are paying attention to the economy. I hope that you all are looking, where are the jobs going to be in the future? Please don't tell me y'all got some degree in which not going to mean nothing in the next 5 or 10 years and y'all ain't going to find no job. So you need to be aware of that. What does the future look like for me, and where am I going to be working? Can we all agree on that? All right. So this was just reported. January 4, 2019, I pulled it up in the Trib. U.S. employers add a stellar 312,000 jobs in December, providing reassurance on the economy. This headline is some bullshit. Now, I just want you all to know. And when you all see numbers like this, it is up to you, the future leaders of tomorrow, to be skeptic. Because they had the audacity to put reassurance on the economy, and they give us a picture of McDonald's. Excuse me? Come on, like, look at the copy and look at the graphics. That right there should just tell you something ain't right. And something is not right. Because what they did not tell you is something that's so super important, is that for the first time in the history of the job reports since 2010, women are now overtaking men as the majority of workers in the workforce. Now, I know y'all feminists in here like, oh yes, women, yes, we are doing it, we are. No, ladies, stop it. No. That's, again, you gotta pull back those onion layers. You got to look at, wait a minute, what's happening? Women held more U.S. jobs than men in December for the first time in nearly a decade? What is going on? And I'm gonna tell y'all what's going on. First and foremost, let me give you a few statistics for those individuals in the classroom that are taking notes. There are over 12 million people working in American restaurants. I'm gonna break that down. It's 2.2 servers, 1.7 million cooks, 779,000 supervisors, and another 32 million people employed as food prep and food service. And I'm not hating on that at all. When I was in college at that other university up in East Lansing, I worked in food service. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands how many folks in this room are working in food service right now, but I bet you there's some people right now in this room that's working in food service. So I'm not hating on food service at all. That's the reality. And so while there are certainly employers in the restaurant industry who provide high-quality jobs, by and large, the industry consists of some of the lowest wage jobs in the country, with very few benefits, and many restaurant workers live at or near poverty. That's a problem. So you say to yourself, well Devita, what is happening? How is it that after a decade-long economic expansion, where there's been a boom at the very top for the 1%ers, the 2%ers, they're doing very well, very, very well. How is it that millions of workers are left behind? How is it? Look at the jobs report. There's something that's really interesting in it. Not only are women overtaking men as the majority, but what that job report tells us that they don't tell you in the headlines is in that same report, we lost over 25,000 mining and manufacturing jobs. What's happening is the U.S. economy is moving from a manufacturing company to what we call a service-orientated country. And as a result of that, those jobs and those industries that men typically worked in, mining, construction, manufacturing, they're losing more of those jobs than the jobs that women typically work in, which are service-orientated jobs, fast food workers, hospitality, healthcare. Those jobs are outpacing jobs in manufacturing. That should be scary to everybody because those jobs tend to be lower-waged jobs. So we have to be thinking, we have to be paying attention. So let's break down for a few moments, for a minute, what that really looks like. Is the fast food industry, is the restaurant industry in this country important? You better believe it is. The restaurant industry consists of 5% of GDP in this country. Last year alone, the restaurant industry in sales made $799 billion. It's very important. You think any of that wealth trickled down to the workers? No, it did not. And so you have to start thinking, well, who are these workers, Devita? What do they look like? Who are they? 52% of all restaurant workers are women. And out of that, a quarter are single mothers. Mothers that are raising our babies on the wages of fast food and restaurant salaries. Oh, but restaurant workers are more likely than other workers to be poor. Restaurant workers are also more likely, 17%, to live at the poverty line. And here's the reality, is that in other industries, it's only 6.3%. Restaurant workers outpace any other industry that has the majority of its workers living at or below poverty. By race and ethnicity and gender, I told you that the highest percentage of restaurant workers are women. But if we break that down by race, if we break that down by ethnicity, it's African American and Hispanic women that are the majority of restaurant workers. And what makes it even worse is that not only as a result of their economic status are they insecure in terms of food insecurity, which we already heard today, which then we can also pair that with health inequities. Only 14% of restaurant workers receive health insurance from their employers. And you compare that to other industries where almost half of the employers offer their employees health insurance. So here's the thing. Before I leave here, I don't never want y'all to look at these golden arches the same again, ever, never. So I'm gonna spend a little bit of time on this slide. All right, Lily, I got 7:48. Let me see if I can do this. I brought notes so I can stick to this time here. I'm gonna spend a little time on the golden arches. And it's important to me to really focus on these golden arches because in the city of Detroit, my hometown, McDonald's employs 53,000 workers. Hello. In the city of Detroit alone. So I pay close attention. But that ain't by accident, y'all. It's not by accident McDonald's overly saturates the city of Detroit, which is a predominantly black city. That's not by accident. And so here's what I want you to know. Like, you know, we've got our health warriors, our food justice advocates, and I love them. I consider myself a part of that family. While they're fighting trans fat and McDonald's kids meals and McDonald's splashy advertisement, I think that's important. But few have considered exactly how fast food became a staple of black diets. And what I mean by that is that many of them don't look at how fast food, particularly McDonald's, got embedded in the African American communities in the first place. They're not paying attention to the infrastructure that was created that basically preceded fast food. Why is that? It's a reason why McDonald's is so prevalent in our community. Let me get to that. And so you want to talk about the fact that many low-income, African-American, Hispanic, people of color, fast food is easy to get. Yeah, it is. It's everywhere. But I want folks to also start asking some real critical questions. I want folks to start analyzing and looking at, well, how is it fast food is so easy to get at McDonald's, but fresh, healthy food is not? Why is that? Why is it that fresh food is so expensive in these communities, but fast food is so cheap? Why is that? What failures, and I use the word failures, have been created in these neighborhoods where so few healthy retail choices are available? Why is it? I want y'all to start asking these questions because I think for far too long, research on race and fast food has been placed solely on black palates. And the blame has been placed on black parents for the dismal state of black health without understanding how we got here in the first place. Yes, it's important for you to know the calorie count of a Big Mac. Okay, yeah, that's important. Yes, it's important to know that when you eat French fries from McDonald's, you probably are exceeding your sodium intake for the day. Yes, that's important. Yes, it's important for you to understand that promoting healthy lifestyles can improve the longevity of people who have fast food saturated in their neighborhood. Yes, but I still keep asking the questions, how did we get here in the first place? Really quickly, I'm going to tell you how we got here. You all weren't born and I wasn't either. But it was the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. that got us to this place of McDonald's. That's the reality. So after the assassination of Dr. King in 1968, you all know that there was what we call rebellions or upheaval or riots all over the country in African American communities. From Detroit to Boston to St. Louis to Watts to New Jersey, all over this country, there was rioting, uprising, rebellion, and the devastation and the damage that assassination inflicted upon black communities, we still haven't rebounded yet. But the government thought, oh, what could be an easy way for us to infuse economic development into these communities? And you know what that bright idea was? To start allowing African American small businesses to franchise into McDonald's. So a way that the government thought to infuse economic and community development back into these neighborhoods after King was to allow black-owned small businesses to buy into the McDonald's franchise. And so for African Americans, that history of development of fast food is present in our communities today. And you cannot separate race and fast food. You can't separate the constraints and racism and the limits of opportunity into how much you can make in some of these communities and how long you can live without understanding the history of fast food in our community. See, I understand that history very well. And as a result, I'm the executive director of a nonprofit organization called Food Lab Detroit. And what Food Lab Detroit is, it's a community of healthy food businesses. It's an incubator, accelerator of sorts. This is, we don't have to rely on the economic and community development of fast food. How we really keep dollars circulating within our community is local ownership. How about we invest in residents to actually build and create healthy food retail in their own community? And two things will happen. Not only will they provide healthy, fresh food in their community, not only will dollars circulate in their communities, but they'll think about, how do we provide living wages? How do I employ those individuals that have high barriers to employment? This is an example of a pop-up that we did called the Dream Cafe during the LI Media Conference. We wanted to make this restaurant we popped in for almost a week. We wanted to make it musical. We wanted to make it culturally appropriate. We wanted to make it inclusive. We wanted to make it diverse. We wanted to ensure that even through this experiment, that the workers there, the servers, were being paid a fair minimum wage. In many cases, $20 to $25 an hour. We wanted to figure out the business model on how do you do that. We wanted to make sure that our chefs, our cooks and culinarians were locally sourcing from Detroit farmers and growers. How do you do that? What we were trying to figure out is how do you create what we call a triple bottom line food business. And it's an accounting methodology where we're not only concerned with profit and stability, we're concerned with people and we're concerned with the planet as well. And so Food Lab Detroit is this community of food businesses who have this crazy idea that we can be profitable. We can also be concerned about our people and, more importantly, the planet. And if you want to see this in action in Detroit, look no further than those same women who I told you about earlier, who are occupying the majority of the food space. Those same women are rising up. And they're saying, no, 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 no. If we want to dismantle this system, we're going to have to do it ourselves. And the way that we do that is that if we become owners. And so this is an example of a Food Lab member business. It's called Folk Detroit, where the headline says, nourishing the mind, body, and spirit. This female-led team at Folk, not only do they provide wholesome food, but it's more than just about the ingredients. It's also about community. It's also about local ownership. This headline right here, Lisa, Sister Pie, I love this one. Baking and fighting the patriarchy. All right, we fight the patriarchy. We dismantle it. We're going to have all women working. I'm only hiring women, okay? This is how women do it. April Anderson is another one. Good Cakes and Bakes talks about fostering and sustaining creativity. April doesn't just bake for her community, she creates community. This is what I'm talking about. This is the new wave. This is a picture of Avalon. A beautiful Detroit begins with you. And for us at Food Lab, a beautiful Detroit is how do we take this culinary industry, how do we take the food-based, place-based food retail, I got 4 minutes, I know. How do we do that in a way that makes our city beautiful, right? So I'm gonna end with this because I got 4 minutes to go. Food Lab, over a course of a year, we worked with some amazing women to write our first book. It's called A Seat at the Table. It went to the printer today, and I'm so super proud of our book. The Seat at the Table was inspired by a quote from Shirley Chisholm that talks about a seat at the table. Shirley Chisholm was the first black woman to run and to be elected to the U.S. Congress, and the first black candidate to receive a major party nomination for president, if y'all didn't know. And she says, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair, okay? That's what you do. And so I'm gonna end with 3 minutes by ending this with a little bit of what I wrote in the book at the introduction of the book to round this out. Is that I know right now in Detroit and really all around the country, we live in an oppressive food system, particularly as it relates to wages in food retail. But at Food Lab Detroit, we believe that it doesn't need to be this way. There is an alternative to racial exclusion and unequal growth, and Food Lab has a critical role to play. A prerequisite to catalyzing and sustaining our desire for change in the food economy is that our work must be guided. Hear me. It must be guided by the voices of the very groups who have long been left behind. You can't create change if the people who are most impacted are not a part of that change. So engaging Food Lab Detroit members in the beginning of our journey of industry reform creates a sense of ownership. It can help ensure that efforts to change are relevant and accountable to our community over time. How do we have restaurants? And how do restaurants and income and culture shift when women and people of color occupy managerial and ownership positions? How can managers and diners work to end racial segregation in the food industry? How do food businesses ensure that wages and employment and conditions and job security and working practices improve household security and health of their employees? We ask those questions, and we talk to a community of restaurateurs that have achieved this. They've achieved more equitable relationships with their staffs in the community. They've tackled subjects ranging from the lack of leadership for women in restaurants. And more importantly, we listened. So in conjunction with listening, we held these roundtable discussions, and we spent time with 7 women in the industry who have risen to the challenge and overcome personal hurdles in order to leave their impression on Detroit's food system. Here's the key about these women. These are women who are no longer willing to accept that we have to be 53% of food service workers and not get paid a fair and living wage. These are women who are saying no longer are we going to be the majority of culinary school graduates, but fewer than 20% of us are working chefs, and fewer than that own restaurants. No, these are women who are outraged. They're outraged. They want to do something about it. And if you're looking to see who's challenging these deep inequities, look no further than the women in Detroit's culinary industry. A seat at the table serves as an extension to Shirley Chisholm's call to action to think about how can Detroit's food economy benefit when women and people of color have a seat at the table. That's 8 o'clock, y'all.